Good morning and welcome to Business Lens. Yesterday, Nigerians received the somber news of the passing of our immediate past president, Muhammadu Buhari, who died in London at the age of 82. He was a man who truly came, he saw, and he conquered, twice I might add. First as a military head of state from 1983 to 1985, and then as our civilian president from 2015 to 2023, riding on the powerful change mantra. But as we reflect on his remarkable journey, the question for many remains, did that change truly materialize, especially in our economy? So today on the Business Lens, as we mourn the former president, we will dedicate our time to remembering and analyzing his complex economic legacies during his time in office. His presidency certainly saw its share of economic headwinds. Nigeria experienced two recessions under his watch, one in 2016 and another in 2020. A first for any single administration. We also saw the controversial border closure in 2019 aimed at boosting local production of rice and the widely debated Naira redesign policy, both of which drew significant criticism from experts. Yet, President Buhari also championed Nigerians on the global stage, notably endorsing Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala for Director General role at the World Trade Organization and supporting Dr. Akinwumi Adesina for his second term as president of the African Development Bank. Domestically, while the Treasury Single Account, or TSA, was initiated earlier by the Goodluck Jonathan administration, it was fully implemented by his government in 2015, centralizing government revenue. And in 2016, he launched the National Social Investment Program, Africa's largest, which included initiatives like farmer money, trader money, markets money, and the conditional cash transfer to the vulnerable. The Anchor Borrowers program, launched in 2015, also disbursed over 800 billion naira to millions of smallholder farmers, though it remains a subject of controversy till date. Perhaps one of his most significant reforms came in the oil sector with the enactment of the Petroleum Industry Act, which transformed the NNPC into a limited liability company and established new regulatory bodies for the upstream, midstream, and downstream sectors. That's the NUPRC and the NMDPRA. And in a landmark move just before his tenure was over in March 2023, President Buhari signed 16 constitutional amendment bills into law, granting financial independence to state houses of assembly and judiciaries. Crucially, this also moved railways to the concurrent legislative list and also for the first time allowed Nigerian states to generate, transmit, and distribute electricity even within areas covered by the national grid, a quite for profound form of structuring. So as we dissect these economic policies and their impacts, I have joining me today a panel of distinguished guests who will help us analyze and reflect on his economic policies. We pray for his family and for all Nigerians in this sad time. Do stay with us. All right, welcome back. My name is Faith Duffer Joseph. This is Business Lens on Rapid TV. And like I said earlier, we will be dissecting some of the economic legacies of the immediate past president, Muhammadu Buhari, who passed on yesterday at the age of 82. But part the Business Lens usual custom, we would also look at different headlines that are making the rounds in the world of business, economy, and finance. And to help us unpack all of this, I have joining me in the studio today, Daniel Effa, a financial global market analyst. Always good to have you, Daniel.
Thank you for having me, Faith. Good morning.
All right, then. So let's talk about, President Muhammadu Buhari very, very briefly. I did talk about some of the things that he has done when you're looking at Nigeria's economy. First time Nigeria went into two recessions. That wasn't funny, was it?
Of course, I think to be fair with the administration, they had we are still basically oil dependent, and those two times were funny times in terms of oil figures. The first one, prices went to as low as $40 per barrel. Second one, prices went to as low as zero, right? So if those two times we went into recessions, I think based on the kind of economy he inherited that was largely dependent on oil, I think it was almost impossible to have avoided recessions when we did. However, of course, when I begin to crisscross the entire 8 years of different policies and programs, you will see a lot of negatives than the positives. But when it comes to structure, maybe some of these PIA laws, setting stage for implementing the TSA, for example, some of those little policies that was initiated during his administration will setting us on a better stage for what we're basically seeing, right?
So I mean, his administration was a mixed bag, especially when it comes to economic policies. One of the ones that everybody remembers, not for good, is the border closure that happened.
Yes.
You know, the border closure was supposed to help a lot of indigenous farmers to grow locally.
Yeah.
And of course, we saw a lot of rice farmers come out of that, especially if you consider the Anchor Boras program. But if you see the aftermath of it, is that we have seen more food insecurity. And then, of course, we've seen, you know, Anchor Boras just collect money and disappear. You know, not even thinking they were supposed to pay back.
So I think that the Buhari administration basically just reflected what the entire Nigerian issues is. We have a lot of policies, but very terrible with implementation. Anchor Boras program was meant to be a very good initiative because it was meant to actually boost our local productivity. However, I think we should not completely say the Anchor Boras program was the problem, but we could have also seen an issue with insecurity. It was during his tenure that we had the highest number of insecurity pertaining to food production, because then those farmers would prefer to just consume the money than actually going to the farm because they were being killed on a steady basis. So yeah, those issues were there, and initially the initial perception was that he's going to come fix corruption. But I think at the end of the day, we saw that when the figures came out, we saw that may have been one of the most corrupt 8 years in our history, because look at what happened with Naira redesign, for example. Look at the pressure on Nigerians. So for an average Nigerian, the question is, was your life better again between 2015 to post 2023? And the question is very, very big no, because when you look at the figures, from inflationary pressures to the GDP growth, we practically average 0.8 GDP growth for 8 years. So even if yes, you say yes, we had 2 recessions, but it's even an opportunity to actually grow better, because recessions are just negative growth. So if you basically recover nicely with good positive growth, you would have good numbers.
You can actually reset the economy.
Exactly.
Anyway, let's move on from President Muhammadu Buhari. We'll discuss his administration in full as we go along, you know, in the program. But let's talk about some trending stories. Let's talk about the fact that we're going to get into some sort of rebasing of our economy. I think the last time we did that was the early Jonathan administration, right?
2014.
And that was 2014. And after the rebasement, we saw Nigeria become the largest economy in Africa. But what we have also seen in this administration, we saw, of course, you know, I think it was inflation that was, yes. And now there's another rebasing coming up. According to the Surgeon General of the country, he was saying that the issue with this is that it will give us better data. It will give us better figures to be able to plan better. Do you support that, this idea of rebasing the economy? Because Nigerians have come to the place of thinking, when you rebase, are you actually helping us, or you're just trying to make yourself feel better?
Okay, so I think that if we use the same scenario of what happened with us in 2014, we rebased inflation, rebased GDP, and when we rebased GDP, that was the period we had over $60 billion in foreign direct investment. And so rebasing comes with a function of the methodology that was used and the trust that comes with it. So if the global business community feels that this rebasing conversation is actually reflecting the true economic state, then it makes sense, right? So this was the problem we had in January when inflation was done, because then what you did was reduce, it was rebasing, but it was more of reducing the potency of the major players or the major drivers of your inflation. So if you're saying food inflation was one of the major pointers of headline inflation, and you basically reduced the potency, so you broke it down to different things. Restaurants and so Nigerians are saying the data is saying Nigerians spend 90% of their income. Average Nigerians spend 90% of their income on food, and you reduce the potency of food you get. So it means that what you're simply doing is statistic what do you call it, excitement. You're just trying to play with the numbers to reduce the effect of whatever the real figures is on ground. So this is where the fear comes in, you get, because whether we like it or not, the international community always plays around whatever the local perception is about a certain policy or program. So if This rebasing, yes, the idea behind the rebasing for the GDP is that in the last 10, 11 years, we've seen other sectors of the economy that is not usually captured in the previous GDP figures that would now be captured. The fintech space, more digital space, in fact, even the cryptocurrency space would now be captured. Yes. So the conversation now is the data coming out going to be extremely trustworthy? Would the MBS be very transparent in explaining the methodology to us that everyone can vet and say, yes, this is true? Because if it is true, then what would it position us for actual better business going forward, and if possible, better FDIs that we've been lacking for the past 10 years.
I mean, Nigeria has not seen a lot of FDIs, and some have coming in the oil and gas sector, to be fair, but we have seen a lot more companies also exit the country.
In comparison to our usual numbers is appalling. Because if we've not done $60 billion before, then we would see, because then we're not even in the top 10 FDI destination in Africa at the moment. We have more FPIs than FDIs, and that is a very appalling number.
Hot money. Good for us, right? Anyway, let's talk about the CBN, talking about hot money. So, MPC meeting is coming up, I think it's next week? Yes, next week. Yeah. It's going to be very interesting because, of course, everybody's watching to see what the CBN is going to do. The last MPC meeting, they held, the NPR. So what do you think is going to happen, especially considering the fact that the CBN put out a statement last week talking about inflation soaring because of consumer price index? So now, do you think that they would like to temper that? Because we've also seen that the FBI has slowed down a bit as well. Yeah. So if you look at those two factors, do you think that the CBN will be holding or reducing? Is it time to reduce the MPR?
It all depends on what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow is when the inflation data comes out. Yes. So I think that would be a determining factor. We are expecting inflation to actually go up, right? Because two factors. Last month was a festive period. We know how prices usually move during festive period, and also in the last couple of weeks, we've also had increase in petroleum prices. So that was when crude oil prices went to as far as $75 per barrel. So that should.
But we saw a decrease. I think it was Dangote that announced that there was a decrease in petrol prices.
Yes, but I think this current price was an increase from what it was before. So it is a sensitive market that we are in Nigeria, and that some logistics, transport will always quickly reflect an effect in. So, but of course, I'm not expecting a very marginal increase in inflationary data. It will be minimal. I was talking about maybe 1.9, you get maybe 1.7 month over month, and probably be on the 25%. Is that enough, right, for a significant decision from the NPR? Is another conversation entirely. And I think the CBN came out to say, based on the PMI figures, that inflation might actually increase. But I'm still tweeting towards another maintaining of rates.
The last time we had this conversation, I was right and you were wrong. So I said it was going to be held and you said it was going to be raised. So this time, should we place a bet on it again?
No, we just watch. We'll see what happens. On Thursday, we'll determine a very good, because then figures would have been out by Thursday. We'll have an idea of what might be the decision from the MP. Then we can now place the bet.
Okay, then we'll see. Okay, one very last headline before we wrap up this particular segment. We have the NNPC mulling the sale of the refineries. Did that come as a surprise to you?
I've said it before. in different, I've said it before. I've said I was even saying let's just separate let's just sell it off. You cannot begin to revive a redundant asset like that. It has been 40 years. It's a 40-year-old asset. You should, even if you are going to do that, it should not be the NNPC you're doing this. Sell it off. Let the private, worst case scenario, have an equity share in that party, just like the way we did with Dangote Refinery. Have an equity share in the business, and have a certain level of energy security principles in the agreement, right? But let it be managed by a private company. Would have decided what best to do with those. See what we spend how many billions, 14,
and most of those monies were borrowed.
Exactly.
I think that's the sad part.
Paying back all this money. So
maintenance.
So it is a very serious because I'm looking at the NMPC, over 60 trillion in asset, in physical asset, and refineries, these refineries are among these assets, producing almost nothing. And so you keep spending.
And we're paying salaries,
exactly.
remember.
So,
anyway, thank you so much, Daniel. We'll wrap up this
segment.
That's the analysis segment of the business lens. Let's talk about what's happening where your stocks and your shares are concerned. So we'll go on this very quick. We're going to quickly look at what stock market is saying or what it said, last week or over the weekend. And then after that, we have some more coverage coming up on the life and legacy of former President Muhammadu Buhari. So stay with us here on Rapid TV. Nigeria's economy, the global markets, what does it all mean for you? From stock market insights to global financial news you need to know, from Wall Street to the Main Street and of course the marketplace. Get the answers you need every week on Business Lens with me, Faith Dafa Joseph, as I bring into focus the stories, strategies, and shifts shaping our economy. No angle is missed as I talk about the business, the people, patterns, and possibilities behind them. Welcome to the Business Lens.
Rapid TV, rooted in truth, driven by impact.
On Business Lens, I beg your pardon, on Rapid TV. And yes, it's time to talk about what happened with the stock markets. And over the weekend, it was quite impressive, closed on a very, very strong note. The ASI surged at an impressive 5,159.93 points. Okay, that's like a 4.26% gain. Okay, but I think one of the things that struck me with this particular report is seeing the role banks played where this is concerned. I think I was talking about it last week as well, that when banks are the ones driving your stocks, like they're the most profitable companies in your country, it's a bit of a cause for concern. But for people who have shares in those banks, it's good for them, right?
Yeah. So I think that one of the reasons why financial institutions drive growth in markets like ours is because I was looking at the breakdown of the participants in the market, and you realize that over 70% are institutional guys, while the remaining are retail. And you realize that institutional guys will always operate through financial institutions like banks. So when it comes to investing in those stocks, the different money funds, the different money market, those are majority of the banks move those with. That's one. Number two, we are at an era whereby banks are moving towards capitalization, right? So they suddenly are the ones that will be driving that kind of growth, because if you're capitalizing to that amount, you should be showcasing some level of growth, sustainability, and even liquidity for investors. And that is what they've been doing for the past 10, 15 years. They've been the major drivers, right? But of course, this year has been a mixed, right? While the banks have been leading in consistent profit, in terms of amount of profit made, you get in returns, right? I think you see the retail guys are also stepping in. We were talking about the figures last week. We're seeing some doing over
FMCG guys,
FMCG guys, retail guys. And the reason why retail guys are also doing these numbers is simple. This is like the first time in a long time that we are having stability in currency, which is one of their major issues, right? Because of the components of their operations, right? So that stability is giving everybody confidence. Okay, now you can actually be operating properly now. You can easily the currency losses you usually talk about, the currency risk losses is no longer there. There is potential for growth. So I think that's is also driving. Another major driver is the foreign investors. As at the end of 2024, the amount was maybe 60% local, 40%. Sorry, was maybe 80% local. We were 16% or thereabout for foreign. Now it's about 30%. So that means in the last 5 months, we've seen more foreign inflows into the market, which has also pushed that. Because
where exactly are the foreign flows going to? Because they're not suddenly to Nigeria company. A lot of them are for bonds and things like that.
No, they're coming.
Are they coming into the Nigerian
they're coming
market?
into the stock market, of course.
Stock market.
So coming into the stock market doesn't necessarily mean they're coming into the economy. That is where FDI and FPI conversation is so different. One way or the other, if we can still turn around an FPI into an FDI if the companies that are getting these numbers start to really invest into the economy with whatever they are making. If it just remains in the market level in terms of that price increase level, it is not going to do anything for us. So if banks, for example, are actually pushing their stock prices up because of capitalization, are they actually investing in the economy as they should? The other companies, retail guys, are they increasing factories? So those are the things those are the things that would come up to basically influence the market and actually impact. But this is the issue. If we have a lot of such foreign inflows and it is becoming at a 70-30 rate and it keeps growing, you get because more of them are for institutional investors, it means that they are big funds that can move at any point in time, right? So that is where the risk comes. But for now, let us enjoy ourselves. Let us enjoy the wins, and the
CBN can have some more money.
Exactly.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Daniel Efa, as usual, for coming to analyze this with us. Stay with us here on the Business Lens. On the other side of this conversation, I have another special guest coming up. And yes, this time I will tend to focus on the lifetime legacies and the economic impact of the Muhammadu Buhari administration. So do stay with us.
Meet the men and women shaping the future of Nigeria. Get to know your representatives at the National Assembly. From lawmaking to constituency projects, we'll take you behind the scenes and inside the chambers of the Nigerian National Assembly. Learn about the bills they are championing, the challenges they are facing, and the impact they are making in their constituencies. We'll also bring you closer to the people they are serving and the stories that shape their work. Join us on NAS Watch every Friday on Rapid Television at 7 p.m. So get informed, get engaged, and get to know the leaders shaping Nigeria's future.
Welcome back. It's still Business Lens on Rapid TV. And like I said earlier, we're going to be talking about the economic legacy of the immediate past president, Muhammadu Buhari, of course, who we got the unfortunate news that he passed on yesterday at the age of 82. He has served this country first, like I said earlier, as a military ruler in the 80s, and then coming on as a two-time civilian president between 2015 and 2023. There are different things, of course, that you can look at, that you can consider economic legacy of the Buhari administration, and we're going to be unpacking some of them today. I have a special guest here in the studio, Mr. Idris Adeniyi, Head Pensions Norumbaja. Welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I know we've had this conversation about the Buhari administration plenty times before now. Okay, well, let's have it now on this forum. Some of the things that we can talk about. Let's start with some of the positives. When it comes to infrastructural developments, he was one of the big drivers. When you're talking about railways, we had the Warri-Takme line. We had the completion of the Abuja-Kaduna line. We had the Lagos-Ibadan line. And then we also had the completion of the second Niger Bridge. Yes. So those are significant infrastructural developments during his administration. Let's talk about that.
Yes. Good morning, Nigerians. It's just unfortunate that we lost the former President Buhari. Condolences to Nigerians and, of course, to his family. But a lot happened under his administration. A lot of developments Nigeria witnessed. Though at the end of the day, probably one or two things, gave a wrong impression about the late president to Nigerians. But let's talk about the positives. Like you said, it was massive on infrastructure development. It created the infrastructure concession company Infracorp, which was meant to midwife the rapid infrastructure growth in Nigeria. And some of the achievements, in fact, the program started with 1 billion naira. They were meant to raise about 30 billion naira along the line to fix infrastructure deficit in the country. So notable among those priority infrastructure development that they had was the rail development. Like you rightly said, the Tape-Warri standard gauge was completed. Though we also need to say that many of these projects were not started by the administration.
Like the Abuja-Kaduna.
Yeah, but the fact that he summoned the courage to complete those projects and put them into productive use to the economy. Abuja Kaduna rail project too was there. Lagos, Ibadan, extending to the Lagos seaport, also completed by him. And we also had, maybe I should, let me just mention it for achievement purpose. The Kano Marathon, the one that entered the, what's it called, Niger Republic was also
that never saw the light of the, at least for now. So let's but at least second Niger bridge was very significant because a lot of people talked about completing it and he did it.
Yes, yeah, he did it. I mean, the Lagos, what's it called? Abuja, Kaduna, Zaria, Kano Road too is also part of his achievement. He's really done a lot. The second Niger bridge, many thought will never come to fruition, and this man started it and he completed it. So he's done a whole lot for Nigeria. When you talk about the energy sector too, he was able to also sign the PIA.
After over a decade.
So a lot of courageous, action that he took during his regime. So after over a decade, he signed that into law, and then the act now give birth to two regulatory bodies, NUPRC and the NNPPR. So that's there, and they also give some strength to NNPC. Now becomes a NNPCL. And then we've seen what that has done to Nigeria, and then that also gave birth. Don't forget that was what also gave the tonic to Dangote refinery to come into fruition, and then some other private refineries are also coming in place. On the housing, side, don't forget that the former president also was instrumental to, what's it called, the simultaneous housing development in 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. I think he achieved 35,000 housing units in that area, and then we saw one that is currently on sale in Zuba in Abuja, and so it is for many states of the Federation. And they talk about it even in energy development. We saw what he did with Zungeru, Mambila, and the Siemens deal that was signed.
The Siemens deal was signed, but till date, we haven't seen it move forward. It was signed. Nigerians had a lot of expectations for the Siemens deal. It hasn't really moved forward. I think this time we're talking about resigning another one. So, but let's talk about the cans that he kicked down the road as well. And that's talking about things like the fuel subsidy removal, and also, the issue of our currency. It was during his administration that you had the CBN governor at the time have multiple exchange rates that, gave birth to people, round tripping and things like that. And you also had him kicking the issue of the fuel subsidy down the road, kicking that can down the road, which is why we're where we are now. But let's talk about another thing they did that was very significant. Let's talk about the signing of the constitutional amendment that decoupled the power sector. I think that was really, really significant. It gave birth to the Electricity Act that was now signed by this president, which moved electricity from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. Yes. And even rail, but we have never really seen people take it up, even though he was signed. I mean, how many states have decided that, okay, yes, it's time, let's do this on our own? But the issue I hear is that it is too money intensive, that's why.
Oh yes, yeah. The energy sector, the electricity sector, precisely, and I think it was instrumental to unbundling that system, allowing states to have the authority to license, generate, distribute, and transmit electricity. And what we've seen is due to the capital intensity or capital intensive nature of that sector. In fact, as a matter of fact, in recent times we've seen more of these distribution companies being sold. We saw AEDC on sale. Recently, we saw Ibadan Electricity Develop also on sale. So that tells you. And in fact, if you look at the sector, I think we got it wrong from inception. And then a lot of efforts have been made to correct it with the signing. In fact, remember during the regime of former governor of Lagos State and former Minister of Power, Raji Fashola, they tried to reconstruct, redefine, restructure the electricity, to have a compromise or bargain with the operators in the distribution and distribution sector of that, economy. But it didn't yield any good fruit. But then I think this government should be able to, it's already consolidating on some of the, achievements that President Buhari laid on ground for them. It is my belief that because I trust this government. You know, when this government came on board, I had a lot of bashing from you, Daniel, and so many other people when I said, if these guys can't do it, forget it, take us something else to get it done. And we can see how everything is getting.
You're doing it well with over 100 million Nigerians below the poverty line. But let's talk about another thing that we'll remember the Buhari administration for. I mean, this is huge, and that is increasing our debt stock. And that's looking at, you know, the fact that we had a lot of ways and means, you know, that we had from. So it was almost like we became a minting company. You know what? CBN, we don't have money, can we have more? So that was basically what was going on at the time, and that pushed our debt stock over the line, pushing our inflation forward and increasing liquidity, even outside of the banking sector. All of that happened, you know, because, and then we had exchange rates. The parallel market was about 760 something naira, and then your visual market was at 416 something naira. The disparity was huge. There was a lot of round tripping. And, you know, ways and means. You can't talk about the administration without that.
Okay. To me, honestly, there's no way you can talk about the Buhari administration without, there's no way you can talk good about the administration without, you know, touching on some of the misgivings or misdoings of the administration. Basically, to start with, we had a lot of, when Buhari, the official market around that time, when he took over, Naira to US dollar was around 197.
Yes.
You know, we saw it grew to, I mean, depreciated to around 460 naira, where the black market was trading in excess of 700. That's almost double that. So it created a lot of arbitrage, you know, opportunities for people. And we also saw a regime where we will be in the same sector operating, and they will be, you know, dealing based on 2 or 3 different exchange rates. So it killed a lot of industry, a lot of industry. So then at the same time, we also had ways and means that was printed in excess of 27 trillion as at when it was leaving government. That was unprecedented, and I think it was the first time ever in the history of Nigeria that
and debt servicing got up to 90-something%.
You know,
at the time.
We got debt servicing to revenue to 111.8%. You know, nobody thought Nigeria would survive or recover as quick as we are seeing it now. And that's one of the plus for this government. Like you said, you may think they have not done a lot, but I think those are the issues that we lay on the ground, that these guys, you know, what we have, the situation we have right now is we have, unlike what we used to have in the past, we have net, you know, external reserve now that unencumbered of around $23 billion.
Yes.
You know, whereas the gross position was around 37 billion or 38 billion, and the external debt around 42. We are getting leaner position between external debt position and external reserve. And also we are now also seeing a very, I mean, a convergence of a parallel market and official market. Now the spread between, you know, the corridor in the corridor around the parallel market is just 5 naira to 10 naira. And when you look at exchange rate between the official window and then the parallel market, you're seeing you won't get.
Some people would argue that you can't even call it the parallel market anymore, maybe a retail market, because of what it's like right now.
We're beginning to see what convergence. That's what we're lacking during Buhari's administration. And that's another positive, if you agree with me, for this government. You know, that's not discounting the achievement of former President Muhammadu Buhari. He did a whole lot, particularly on infrastructure development, which you can never discount.
But let's talk about the fact that, as we wrap up, you know, the fuel subsidy removal that happened. He kicks the can down the road. And one of the things that, you know, his aides would always say was that he always said that he didn't want Nigerians to suffer. If in retrospect, if you look back at it now, and you're seeing what is happening with Nigerians with the fuel subsidy removal, and how many people that have been pushed into poverty or below the poverty line that have not recovered. And, you know, because we did simultaneously a naira flotation and fuel subsidy removal at the same time. Yeah. And then you look at, you know, Buhari then saying, well, I don't want Nigerians to suffer too much, so I'm not going to do this. Look at both decisions. So this is seen as a strong decision, but it is affecting the people negatively. And that was seen as soft pedaling, but the people felt like their lives were better financially than now. Yeah. What do you make of that?
Well, the people,
it's always about the people, right? Democracy.
It's always about the people. Yes, we are very correct. You are very correct. But if you look at it, from layman will see it differently from what professionals see. To start with, during former President Buhari's administration, Nigeria was heavy on three subsidies: fuel subsidy, electricity subsidy, and the naira subsidy. We're subsidizing naira, so we had fixed exchange rate regime, which of course will never be fine with any economy. I saw former President Buhari as someone, or as a socialist, whereas we have a capitalist regime now, where everything is just allow everything to
allow the markets,
allow the market to dictate. And then look at what we have in the last week or so. So we've seen relatively stable naira. Though we still feel that the difference in inflation between Nigeria and the US will definitely impact the value of the two currencies. So if you are doing cash flow planning, it makes sense for you to factor the differential. That's fine. Number one. Number two is that you look at it in the petroleum sector now. We've seen subsidy removal, which now allows the downstream sector to determine. Everybody now determines how much he wants to sell his product now. Well, that's where you see Dangote reducing price by a certain amount, and you see NNPC to also going, because if you don't follow that trend, you will be off market.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Mr. Idris. I wish you had more time to unpack that, but I would say this. These reforms, they were necessary. The President, Buhari, kicked the can down the road.
Oh, yeah.
But he had a case of, you could call it socialist, but he felt like, the people mattered because they couldn't handle it. This administration came on and said, you know what? Let the market determine everything. Take out all the subsidies. And the people are crying and dying and hungry. So, at the end of the day,
but the nation
every
is surviving.
policy, the nation is surviving and the people are dying. The people make up the nation. And then every policy is about Nigerians, isn't it? So we'll see how this plays out. But thank you so much, Mr. Idris, for coming on the show. This has been Business Lens for today on Rapid TV. Thank you for joining us. Of course, remember that you can follow us on all our socials. And I will be back on Thursday. Thank you so much to my guests. Enjoy the rest of your day. The news comes up at 12 noon. Bye-bye.
My name is Akio Sakido.
Hey guys, this is Anto Lecky.
My name is Leo Bliss.
My name is Akava. I go by the name Baba D.
And you're tuned into Rapid TV.
And I love Rapid TV.
Shout out
Rapid TV.
Thank you, Rapid TV. Please keep watching
Rapid TV.
This is Rapid TV.
Rapid TV.
Keep watching.
Keep it down.
Leave it like that.
This is me giving a rapid response to Rapid TV.
Your Excellency, this is a head of state and government.
Don't push.
Vice President.
Alors, comment ça tu t'appelles? Pas que ça là, tu veux aller go in.
Excellency, His Excellency